Well, thank you, Paul. I got to tell you, Paul gave a very gracious introduction. He said we played football together back in the 60s. What he really wanted to say is the truth, which is South High School beat us in the championship game. So, Paul, thank you for being so gracious. I'm really excited to be here this morning as governor of the state of Washington. It is such a beautiful morning. Mount Rainier was out. Our beautiful kids are back in kindergarten and first grade. The Mariners are over 500. This is a great state, and I feel that I am really blessed to be in a great partnership with the leaders of our cities, small, medium, and large across the state of Washington. And it is a great partnership. I think it's been very productive in the first 4 years, and I really want an opportunity to go back and keep working with you for another 4 years. And I'll tell you why I am committed to this partnership. It is not just ideological. It's a little bit personal because I know these cities. I was born in a big city of Seattle. First home was in a small town of Tenino where my dad was a teacher. I raised my 3 sons in a small town of Selah, Washington in eastern Washington. And now I live in public housing in a medium-sized city of Olympia. So I know these cities. I know their spectrum of opportunities and challenges. And I'll tell you, when we get to create a job in Wenatchee, where we did at the Vibro company, because we helped this company start and get going to make egg container boxes. That job is just as spectacularly important in Wenatchee, Washington, as it is when we get aerospace jobs created in the West Side. So I know the cities of this state, but it's also been a joy to me to work in partnership personally with city leaders. Look, to get to meet and get to work with Mayors Sexton and Boudreau when we really did create was a bit of a miracle to get that Skagit River Bridge up in 27 days and to work with those city leaders with the permitting that was required and the community work. To see their leadership was remarkable. I got to see Dan Rankin and Mayor Tolbert just this weekend, and I was reminded of the first town hall meeting they had in Darrington after the slide. It was the second night after the slide, and I was there at their gym, which is an incredible gym. It's a gym that they built by hand in 1954. The people milled the lumber to build this gym. It's the most beautiful gym in the state. But I've known a lot of leaders. I've known 2 President Bushes, President Clinton, President Carter, President Obama. I've known some great senators. But I got to tell you, Mayor Rankin's leadership at that town hall meeting when that city was so traumatized and they still were looking for loved ones, to see what he did at that meeting, it was an act of leadership as much as anything I've ever seen in public life. And it was a small town mayor. And I have admired Dan and all those leaders I've worked with. So this is personal with me, and I think this has been a very productive partnership. So I'd like to talk about a little bit what we've accomplished the first 4 years, and then a little bit about the challenges and opportunities moving forward. First off, what we've accomplished. Look, we have moved the needle big time in the state of Washington. There are so many positive things going on in the state of Washington, it's hard to keep track. And they're happening all across the state of Washington. In Redmond the other day, I talked to guys at Aerojet. You know, NASA just launched a mission to go capture an asteroid and bring part of it back for analysis. Do you know where the jets, the rockets were made? It was made in Redmond, Washington, right? The geniuses in the state of Washington. And I can't turn around without getting to meet and work with some genius doing some great work in the state of Washington. This is truly an exciting job. And so we want to help those genius entrepreneurs thrive, and we're doing it. Let's start with transportation. First off, I want to thank you for your leadership on transportation. This was a tough job. And it was tough because we had one group in the legislature that for 2 years said, we are not going to do a transportation package. And we said, yes, we are. We said, yes, we are, because we understood that the economy was absolutely dependent on a vibrant, robust, healthy, well-maintained transportation system in cities big, small, and large. And by the way, it's not just the big cities when I thought of transportations. I thought of being able to get the apples from Selah to the ports of Seattle and Tacoma. And that means widening Snoqualmie Pass so that we could move our products. This transportation package was as important for the small cities as it was for the more congested cities of Seattle and Tacoma and Everett. And that's why I'm very happy that we were able to succeed in this big project. And your leadership was tremendous on this. And what we brought to the table are the things that leadership depends on: a vision, persistence, diligence, and a willing to listen and compromise. And we did all of those things together, including compromise. Look, I had to swallow a big compromise on this energy package issue in order to get this transportation package through. But we did. And it was not only the largest transportation package in the history of the state of Washington, with the most transportation projects all across the state of Washington: North-South Freeway in Spokane, Vancouver, the Miller's Plain Interchange, in Snoqualmie Pass. We finished 520. Imagine that. We got a floating bridge that's going to be connected to I-5. Isn't that a miracle? It'll actually be connected. 167 in Pierce County. Small projects in all of these cities to connect to these cities where we're doing good things. We're like, Mayor Tolbert helped us save over $10 million in the connection in Arlington, this little connector road to Arlington, because she worked in her leadership with our Department of Transportation. We were able to save over $10 million on that project. So we're doing some big things in transportation, not only the biggest, but the smartest transportation package in the history of the state of Washington. And I'm glad that we've had this achievement. I wish we could say it's going to fix everything tomorrow, but I'm happy that we're moving fast. Look, we figured a way to bring a new lane in 6 months sooner than we thought on 405 to try to relieve some of the congestion and improve the experience for people in 405. So we've made progress. We're going to continue this progress by working together. Look at education. Most exciting thing to me as governor is when I get to go into a classroom and see a young child's eyes lighting up. I saw that in Kent the other day, and in Mountain View Elementary School, where I saw new ways of educating kids, including dual language programs. Watch these little kids' eyes light up in the first week of school, and we are helping them big time. Look what we have achieved. Look what we have achieved in the first 4 years in the education of our kids. First off, the largest investment, new investment, $5.5 billion of education. This is the largest expansion of investment ever made in the state of Washington. But look what we've got for that investment. Number one, significant expansion of early child education. 7,000 kids at age 3 and 4 now are going to get help, so that poverty should not be destiny. We cannot allow poverty to be destiny. We're going to get every kid full-day kindergarten. Is going to have access to that. We've made that those funds available to local districts. We are reducing class sizes. We have a new mentoring program for teachers to improve classroom management skills. We have a new pay increase for teachers, long overdue, and a bipartisan accomplishment that I'm giving credit to Republicans to thinking of first, that we now made sure that applied to everyone in our colleges. I'm the only governor in the country who can say we've reduced college tuition for every single student in the state of Washington in our public schools. So we can honestly say at every single rung of the educational ladder, we have improved the education of our kids. And now I'm excited to go back and take that last step in a multi-step process to fulfill our constitutional obligation in this McCleary decision. And I'm excited about doing that, and I'll tell you why. I think we should approach this with confidence and optimism, and here's why. It's because we know we can do hard things. We did hard things on transportation, and we finally did it together. We did hard things by finding $5.5 billion already to put in our schools. We can take the next step. And I'm glad that I've been able to bring the parties together to form a task force to first identify the cost of that. But here is the big challenge that you and I need to be aware of. We know that too many legislators want to look at your budgets as the piggy bank. That when things get tough, they want to dip into your budgets as their piggy bank to bail them out. We cannot allow that to happen. And I have fought. I think you know that this isn't just rhetoric with me. I've put a muscle behind this effort when I've had to, which includes standing up for the Public Works Trust Fund. And that fund is so precious to me because I know you do such creative things with it. I look at Mayor Rankin's going to get a new skate park up at Darrington. That's the kind of things that we want to help local districts do. So when we stop that raid or fight in that raid, it's meaningful to me. When we were able to stop the fire insurance premium raid, we were able to stop that. These things seem little to legislators. But look, I was a part-time assistant city attorney for Sela, a town of 3,600, where $500 is the difference between success and failure, okay? So to me, these are not little things. These are cities being able to move forward with their communities. And when we did the transportation bill, I was also happy we were able to have, and I fought for this, a big maintenance account, because being able to have a decent maintained road to have access to your cities is a big deal. So I guess my message fundamentally is, when I think of these things, I think of myself just like I used to, which was living in Selah, Washington, and 3,500 people, and the kind of things we had. It's another reason where I don't want to preempt you. Look, my opponent wants to preempt cities and what they do on minimum wage. I don't think we should preempt cities. I think cities should be able to make decisions above the statewide minimum wage should they desire to do that. So going forward, we have got to find ways to solve the McCleary challenge that does not involve gutting your budgets. And I look forward to working with you on this. Now, this is not just cities that are at risk here. We have to understand this. I came in as governor following several years of gutting services to citizens in order to solve financial challenges, okay? And we've got to be aware that that can continue. For instance, the Republican Party in the Senate last year wanted to zero out the document recording fee, okay? They wanted to steal that money for something else. Well, guess what? That's the financial underpinning for our homelessness issues, right? Where we're trying to fight homelessness. And I've been active doing that. We put over $230 million in housing stock. I'm very proud that we've established the youth homelessness program. I'm very proud that we, under my leadership, started the rapid rehousing projects. We can get people into permanent housing fast. We just had a report that King County's concluding that can be a very effective thing. This is working really, really well. So we've done good things on this. But we know we have a huge challenge moving forward because we got a great economy, and when you got a great economy, guess what happens? 65,000 people are moving here. That means rents go up, and rents are going up faster than wages. So we know we got a lot more work to do on housing. But you don't solve housing by zeroing out the document recording fee and gutting that service provision for people. And that's what the Republicans in the Senate wanted to do. We stopped that. I said, no, we're not going to do that. We got to maintain these services to citizens. Look at what happened in mental health before I was governor. The state gutted our mental health system. We took offline 150 beds. We have a mental health crisis, but what happened before I was governor? They took offline 150 beds. They lost about 350 employees or more. So I've been active rebuilding that capacity. We've now replaced 120 of those beds, and we're continuing to build that capacity with new facilities at Maple Lane and Yakima. We're increasing capacity, and we're on the track of increasing staffing. We've just had 30 new net hires at Western State, and we're on track by the end of this year to be able to meet our True Blood commitment to reduce these wait times that have been reduced already from 25 to 75%. So we're on track, but we got more work to do. But you don't solve it by cutting funding. And we've got to be aware of that and stay true to our partnership to make sure that that does not happen. Now, we've been working on some other challenges as well. This thing about oil trains. Oil trains are a concern not just for Seattle, Puget Sound, they're concerned for the whole state because they're going through Spokane, they're going through Woodland, they're going right through all these small towns in the state of Washington. And that's why I'm pleased that I've been able to fight for better oil train safety regulations. I'm pleased we passed a bill in the legislature, but it isn't enough. One of the parties blocked a stronger measure. We're going to be back at it this year. And I've been working with the federal government to try to increase their protections so that we can have lower train speeds, electronic braking, and clearly better track inspection protocols. We've got to have more safety when it comes to these oil trains. And I'm looking forward to the continued work we need to do. And if you'll excuse me here, it's a little early in the morning here, so let me take my gin. No, this is just water, excuse me. We've got some other environmental challenges that cities are dealing with. I was looking at the Anacortes water system a couple years ago, and I saw that they had to design their new water system to take into account climate change because it's changing the hydrology of the area, and they've had to build their whole water system essentially so it could float, if I can understand it correctly. It's sort of an enclosed bathtub so it can float to deal with changing hydrological systems in that river drainage. So you're having to deal with climate change issues in your infrastructure projects. And we need to help you do that so we can have better planning, so we can consider the things we need to do to deal with some of these changes. But that isn't enough. We need to fight climate change and ocean acidification itself. Look what I've had to look at as governor. We've had the 2 largest forest fire seasons in the history of the state. An area the size of Delaware burned down last year in our state. I'm not going to let our state burn down and do nothing about climate change. Look, I've looked at the eyes of people in eastern Washington when their houses are still smoldering. It is not a pretty picture. The trauma people have when their houses burn down, it's painful, and I've seen that. And I don't think we should let climate change ravage this state. So we're going to work together to build responses to climate change, to reduce carbon pollution, including some of the efforts I'm doing in clean energy research at the University of Washington, some of our rules that will reduce carbon pollution, and I'm excited because we get science in this state. And I'm excited we have local leaders who aren't just sticking their heads in the sand. They're making plans to, in fact, deal with this problem. And I'm excited every time I get to go to a trail opening, like I did with Nancy here a couple years ago. We want to build your recreational activities every chance we get, and I look forward to doing that. So in sum, I appear before you a confident, optimistic partner. I'd really like to continue that partnership. I think we've got a lot of reasons to be confident, and I'm going to look forward to your easy softball questions this morning to tee up this partnership for another 4 years, I hope. Paul, thank you.
This question comes from Casey Kuykendall, Waitsburg City Council. Now, you actually covered some of this, but I want to give you an opportunity maybe to expand on this. The Public Works Trust Fund it was created in '85, and of course we've been struggling with the absence of that fund for some time. So if you're reelected, how would you prevent further misappropriations or further cuts? Are you prepared to try to help us restore funding in that account?
Yes, I very much am. And again, the reason is that when I go around the state of Washington, I see tremendous local creativity and tremendous leveraging of other non-governmental resources, a lot of times in the use of these accounts. So this account is tremendously positive in bringing in additional capital to these infrastructure projects in small and large towns across the state. So when we do some of these small investments with the Public Works Trust Fund, guess what? You get to leverage the bank that kicks in some money for the skate park, and maybe a wealthy tech person who pitches in. That's what's happening in Darrington. I mentioned just this skate park going on. It's top of mind because I was there this weekend looking at the beautiful Stillaguamish Valley. So it's just a tremendously effective thing for leveraging additional dollars. It has where the rubber meets the road, where the people are closest, which are your local leaders. It has that advantage. And frankly, they're not enormous amounts of money. But again, this comes back to this refrain. We've got to find a solution to the McCleary decision instead of gutting all of these other important priorities of mental health and housing and the Public Works Trust Fund. And that's why we've got to stand together to find a solution to the McCleary decision, and I hope that you'll help us make sure we do that.
Cities are obviously at ground zero for so many things, perhaps everything going on in the state. We're sort of that building block. And if you're reelected, would you consider forming a task force that would help develop a stronger relationship with cities, and frankly, I'm going to say with counties as well, local governments that would help us be true partners in the economic development world, as well as dealing with some of the environmental issues and all of the issues that we work with?
Well, I'm happy to consider it a task force, but I don't think we need a formal way of doing that. We've got to do it every day and every week. And I consider, as I've said, this an existing partnership. And that's why we were successful in the transportation. I don't know how many meetings I had with people here from every sector of the state to try to get our legislators to pass the transportation bill. And that was a 3-year task force. I'm not even sure we had a name, but it sure worked well. The same is going to be true when I hope we work together to help solve the McCleary decision, where you help us get the financial underpinning to solve the school funding problem the right way instead of the wrong way. Because the wrong way would be gutting the Public Works Trust Fund, not gutting the model toxics bill, not investing in local capital, in the whole 9 yards. So we can consider that an ongoing task force. On economic development, I'm intrigued by the question because we have been, I think, very successful to date, being really nimble and fast working with local governments when it comes to economic development. For instance, I got a call from Spokane. We had an aerospace company that is looking for a manufacturing site. And I got a call on a Wednesday, and I was in Spokane on a Friday to look personally at that site so I could be an advocate going forward to try to get this aerospace manufacturer. Now, we have a couple other competitors in the state as well, so I'll be equally adept at knowing them. And I think we've been really good and successful. I went to was really excited to look at the economic gardening program that came out of Tri-Cities. Anybody from Tri-Cities here? I would see, yes. I was really excited. We want to take this statewide, which gives a mentoring experience for small businesses. Our strategic investment account has worked significantly from Moses Lake, where I've got to go to the world's largest manufacturer of carbon fiber that goes into electric cars, and the world's largest manufacturer or Western Hemisphere's largest manufacturer of polysilicate that goes into solar cells. I was meeting with the iTech company, seeing their solar panels in operation there in Bellingham. So we've really focused on local partnerships, and I think we've been quite successful. Anyone has a suggestion on how to make that more successful, please let me know. This is a high priority for me, and where we've done this kind of strategic work, we've had really, really good success.
Governor, thank you. I have one last question for you. It's really a combination of a couple of questions, Sally Bagshaw and others. So you mentioned, and we really appreciate your willingness to hold tight on the statewide funding for homelessness coming from those fees. But I don't need to tell you, you know we're all struggling, east side, west side, big city, small city, with the very thorny issue of homelessness. And it's not just homelessness, it's homelessness, it's mental health issues, it's substance abuse issues, it's veterans issues. you have some thoughts as to how you can help us in addition to keeping those funds in place, which we need, things that we can be doing and working with you and you with us to try to address this problem?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, and this would be an hour-long conversation, but I'll hit the highlights. Number one, identifying the root cause of this problem is important. The principal root cause is the economic success of the state of Washington. And this is bizarre. This is a bizarre irony. So Business Insider magazine listed us as the #1 economy in the United States. Last week, it was announced that we had the most robust small business job creation of any state in the United States. 65,000 people are moving here for jobs today. So here we have the most successful economy in the United States in a lot of ways. Unemployment is down in every single county across the state. Obviously, it's disparate. It's a hotter economy in Seattle than it is in Ellensburg today, but still robust economy. So how can it be that in such a successful economy, we end up with an increase in homelessness in many, not just some, but many of our places? And the answer is because rents are going up, because people are moving here, because our economy is so successful, and rents and housing costs are going up faster than wages. Fundamental problem. So over 30% of the people who today are in homelessness camps, I was in an interurban homelessness camp a couple months ago at 7 o'clock in the morning, everybody's walking out with their lunch buckets because they're going to work. These people are working, but their wages are not keeping pace with rents and housing costs is the fundamental, the biggest delta that's changed this problem. So there are multiple solutions to that. One is looking at lower income wages. Look, we need to raise the minimum wage so the people who are doing our work in our nursing homes and in our hospitals and feeding us with full-time jobs, they can have some increase in wages. So I'm for this minimum wage initiative. Disagree with my opponent on this. We need to raise the minimum wage, and we have to not preempt the cities if you want to go above the statewide floor. I disagree with my opponent on this. I think we ought to give cities the independence to make their decisions about that. Number two, we've got to be smart and adopt the strategies that we know we worked. I mentioned this rapid rehousing that we have had really, really sound success on to get people into permanent housing quickly so that they avoid ending up in a long-term problem. I'm glad that the Seattle report sort of adopted what I started, frankly, a year or two ago on this rapid rehousing new trial. It's working really, really well. Obviously, third, we got to increase our housing stock, and that means financing the Housing Trust Fund. We've put over $200 million of new money in housing, but we got to increase housing stock. That means I've got to continue to beat those in the legislature who want to zero out things like the document recording fee. Some of those people are still in the legislature. I might have to defeat them again, but I'm happy to have that battle. Fourth, we got to continue to build back our capacity in the mental health system that was stripped during the recession. We're still not back to the capacity we had pre-recession. We got to continue to build that capacity, more beds, more staff, and very importantly this, I want to mention this, the problems we're having at Western State Hospital can only be solved if we build additional capacity in the communities, in your cities. And the reason is we can't discharge these people, even though they're ready for discharge, without additional community residential transitional housing. So we're going to try to get the legislatures to help me build more capacity in the communities. We have 100 people in Western State Hospital today ready for discharge that could make room for new people. We don't have anywhere for them to go. So we really want to work with you to build that additional community resources in your communities where people can get back to their families, back to jobs, and back to transitional housing. So there's a few thoughts. If we have another 50 minutes, I'll give you the rest. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It'd be an honor to continue this partnership. And don't forget to vote. Thanks a lot.